Hello, we're here today with the part of the newest group of the Arizona Drag Racing Legends. On your left is Art Nolte, Rich Carter, Ken Rhoads, and Mike Hilsabeck. And we're blessed to have them here today telling us the stories and their memories of drag racing, how they got started, and the racing camaraderie, and this, their interaction they have between each of them. How long have you all pretty much know each other?
Yeah.
You've raced against each other?
Well, these guys, for the most part, about the time I quit is when they started racing.
But you were around long enough to make them mad, probably, because they wanted to beat the Carter brothers.
I was mad at it
Yeah.
many times. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember putting you on a trailer.
Multiple times. Thanks for bringing that up.
Never, right? The famed Carter brothers. So,
Yeah.
and you remember these guys racing with these guys?
Yeah, I do.
The any stories that you remember about any particular?
I remember racing at Winslow. We'd go up there every year, and they'd have a big dance in the armory, and we'd drag race on the airstrip. And I had a brand new set of Hildebrands, all polished on my front motor dragster. And some cowboy goes up there and say, "How you doing?" He reaches over and puts his foot in my heel, right in the mag needle or the mag wheels.
Howdy. That was the Northern Arizona Timing Association, wasn't it? Something like that. The group they had.
Ron Miller.
Ron Miller, the
Yeah.
great Ron Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put me in the Winslow Hall of Fame.
I think there's quite a few of you have raced that and have been designated. That's an honor to have. Ron was very passionate about drag racing and
Yep.
definitely pro sportsman and did a lot for the local guys. A lot of great racers came out of Northern Arizona because he gave them inspiration to race. Did you ever race? Everybody race? You race in Winslow?
Yep, we went up there 2 or 3 times.
I even rode in a Santa Fe caboose with Ron because he was a Santa Fe conductor.
Wow.
That was really cool.
What's a caboose?
Yeah, what's a caboose? Yeah.
Those are great stories.
That one of those times at Winslow, and I think little Ray was probably 15 years old, and he made a pass in the car after the day's activities. And I really thought Ray was going to want to be the race car driver. But then Ray just didn't have any interest, but he went really fast for 15-year-old. Probably should have kept that a secret. So.
Oh, I knew
Ray
about it.
Jr., as you said, his deal was somewhere else, basically. And then Gene jumped into it.
Yeah.
When he jumped into it, he poured a lot of money into the cars, and it went from speed here to speed up here.
I thought that was a funny story that you were talking about Dean running over to your car.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we went to Hermosillo, and Gene Rickard and I, with the fuel injected car, and Dean went with us, and going through the border and all the checks and all that. And here, I think Dean is like 10 years old. He's not related to me, but we had a really good time. And yeah, that was a very interesting, I think there were like 300,000 people at that racetrack that night.
Mhm.
Really cool. So,
And every one of them would be handing a beer to you.
yeah.
Say, hey guys,
I mean,
I'm
there was-
driving.
There was no room for anybody else at that racetrack in Mexico, and there was no place for them to park, and they were lined. I mean, when we came in, there was thousands and thousands of people lined in the street. It was really cool.
The experience of going down there, do you feel safe? Back in those days, you felt safe and good?
Yeah, we didn't have any problem, and we were supposed to have a parade that night, but it rained, and we were all quartered in the same hotel, and there were thousands of spectators there. We were all treated great, and yeah, at that time, what was that, probably 40 years ago?
Well, that's a sister city of Phoenix.
We had a
There
great
was
time.
an alcohol racer that went down there with us, and he had his wife in one motel room and his girlfriend in the other room.
I think I know who
I'm
that
not going
was.
to mention who that was.
But one thing, remember, the statute of limitations has run out for most everything you're going to talk
Yeah.
about, so we're pretty good there. The Hermosillo, so you raced down there, you were treated like a king.
Yeah, we didn't really
Was it hard to
make
come
that
back and
much
race
money.
locally after that?
No, we were glad to get home, mostly because we just didn't know the customs, especially with the Mexican police. And I remember going 70 miles an hour down a road, and here comes a checkpoint, and there was no way I was going to get stopped. And I just waved, and we blew right past that checkpoint, and he just waved back. So,
Crazy American.
yeah.
I remember the first round that we all ran down there, and we ran all the American cars against the Mexican cars. Well, the first round, we all won. And you could hear a pin drop in the grandstands after that. We thought, well, we better start losing a little bit.
Yeah,
And once we started losing a little bit, then the crowd was all happy.
yeah. That was part of the custom. You just had to have your eyes open. But we had a good time.
Oh, yeah. When
Yeah.
we went down, we were at a restaurant eating, and it started raining. The street became a river, literally. So we had to wait for the rain, the river to go down before we could go out to the racetrack.
The arroyo. The track, was it smooth? Was it?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. There was bad lighting. I mean, you ran right into the black wall at the finish line.
Was it kind of like Tucson at the other end? You know?
Well, no, but it was like Mel Larson's.
Okay, so yeah, you kind
I
of.
think you guys didn't. You do a fire burnout down there one time, and the bomberos come
No.
hauling ass down the street.
No, we
The
did not
track.
do a fire burnout. The only person I know that did a fire burnout was Ed Smith. He did it at Beeline. That's when he set the whole track on fire.
Well, I did a burnout at Beeline, fire burnout, and the next week, NHRA said, "That's enough of that. That'll never happen again."
Yeah. I remember Joe Iverson did one at Phoenix Dragway, and he got the same. You know, we don't do that. So, but it was fun.
We did one of those at Mel Larson's, and they weren't very happy about that.
Yeah.
Well, you race and you have a chance to go to Mexico ever, Mike, or pretty much stayed in the U.S. and
I raced down there once, but that was about it.
where'd you race on?
Mexicali.
Mexicali, okay.
Yeah.
The south of Calexico, I know it well.
Yeah, we pulled into the motel, and the guy that was putting the race on, he says, "I know the police chief," and he says, "You guys can do whatever you want." So I went out there and turned all the lights red at the intersection, took a couple funny cars out there and ran them down the main street. Because he had a bar also, and he wanted to park some of the cars up to the bar, so we drove them down there.
My goodness. Okay, you couldn't. Yeah, that's.
Then we're all hungry, you know, and wanted something to eat. So some guy's riding a little moped thing, so we gave him $10, told him to go find us a pizza. He showed up like an hour and a half later. But yeah, we had a good time down there.
You raced against one another. You've had some of you had common drivers and common friendships. One of the guys we talked about is Daryl Parrott, and everybody remembers Daryl. Was on the Drag Racing Hall of Fame. He is a drag racing legend. We hope to interview here in the near future. But you were telling a story.
Yeah, we were in the staging lanes at Beeline getting ready to make a run. I was parked right alongside of Daryl Parrott. And Daryl said, "Well, I'd like to drive your dragster." And I said, "Well, let's trade." And we did. I drove Daryl's dragster and he drove mine.
And either one of you red lighted or like lost on purpose, or?
I don't remember what the outcome was.
Was it?
But I was really tight in that thing because I'm about wider than Daryl was, and my shoulders stuck outside the cage.
I want to hear the story of you driving on Scottsdale Road.
Well, that's not one of the better stories.
Oh, it's a great story. Just tell it.
Well, I was in front of my shop, and I had a little front motor dragster, and I was doing burnouts in front of the shop. And one time the brakes didn't really stop that well, and I rolled out into the main street, and some guy drove over the top of me with a Mustang.
I wonder how he
I
explained
still
that
have
to his
I
insurance
still have a
company.
chipped tooth right here from that, all these years later, and that's been 51 years ago.
And how did you explain that to your insurance company?
I don't know exactly what happened there.
Did you get a ticket?
No.
No citation. Well, you were pretty close.
I never got a ticket.
The Scottsdale police, you were pretty close. They were.
Yeah.
I
I
run
know every time we'd do a dyno run or start a race car up, I'd call down to the police station and say, hey, this is Art from Scottsdale Automotive, we're gonna start a car up. Okay.
because they would call on you.
Yeah.
The neighbors were, yeah. That's a great place. Got good memories. So that was the first shop that I remember at the A&W on Scottsdale Road.
Yeah.
The,
Ate a lot of burgers at that place.
drank a lot of root beer.
Yeah. I worked for Art for 5 years over there and had a really good time working there, made a lot of money. It was pretty good. We moved into a new shop while I worked there on Thomas.
Yeah.
Are you still in that same building?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And one of my best memories was the division race at Beeline, NHRA division race. And I had Jimmy Scott and his crew staying at my house. And Art was gracious enough that we had all cars in the shop in the evening doing work and repair. I think I had a broken header on my car, and I went to weld it with a gas welder, and the methanol fumes blew the oil pan off the car. Shocked me.
Never did that before.
No. Everybody said, "What was that?" That was me.
Mike, what do you remember about these guys when you kind of came in on the, they were all pretty much established?
Well, one day we was racing against Morkel and Rhoads, and
Who were those guys?
yeah, somebody was trash talking us. But anyways, I ended up winning that round. My sister went walking back by and she goes, "Oh, we had Whataburger for lunch today."
Oh, the burn.
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of people that had Whataburger on many days. So you should have had me sign that.
I found out that as soon as the race is over, if you're the winner, keep your mouth shut because the other guy's really pissed at you.
Yeah.
Win gracefully. So you remember running against Art or any of his stuff? He was pretty much moved on to that next level you wanted to be at by then.
Yes.
So Art talks about his drag boat days. Have anybody done any of the racing? Mike, you did motorcycles. Anybody else that tried it or handed circle track racing or?
I raced go-karts for a couple of years on dirt tracks. That was fun.
About the only thing to the dinner table.
Yeah.
Is it heads up or do you get a handicap start?
Handicap makes no difference.
Anyway, you can get to the table
right.
first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stand in the way. Hey, 26 years at the fire station, don't stand in anybody's way.
I remember one time I saw Art's car. I think Steve Hogue was driving it out of Beeline, and pretty sure it was the right lane, but ran off the side of the track, which was nice about Beeline because it didn't have walls. And he never lifted. The thing still ran 200 miles an hour when he finally got it back on the asphalt. But it was throwing dirt everywhere in the air.
Yeah, I remember that run. It did run 200.
Yeah,
He got it off the track and drove it into the dirt and got it back on the track and still ran 200.
it never lifted.
Yeah.
Was that with a turbo?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
So it's
I
at
think
that
yeah.
top end power of the turbo, right?
Yeah.
Overcomes a whole lot.
That turbo car was always really impressive. And when he was staging and bringing the RPM up, it sounded terrible. And there were a lot of people said, "Man, that thing's going to blow up." As soon as the load got on that engine, it was
Yeah.
off like a rocket and smooth as silk. And
Made a bunch of little noises we weren't really.
yeah, it was just totally different. And much to my chagrin, it got there the finish line ahead of me sometimes.
So you got to see the back part of the car.
A lot, yeah.
yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for bringing that up.
You remember anybody's logos on their parachutes because you saw them too often, or
Yeah, oh yeah.
so between you all, you have probably safe to say close to 200 years experience in drag racing or memories of drag racing.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Well, that's
Or
okay.
more.
Oh,
Yeah.
Most of them were with Mike though. Okay, so we give him double time for his experiences. What do you remember? But what's your fondest memories of racing?
Going out and winning.
You love winning.
Yeah.
I never wanted to go home second place.
Yeah, well, winning it was really good, and later on I was so tickled just to qualify that I was dancing at the other end. If I was still in the program at the end of qualifying, that was a win for me. So
Yeah, I remember coming back from races where you you go out first round, you finally go a couple rounds, and you go kind of, where'd all those other cars go?
Yeah.
You know, the pits are empty here, but you're
Pits
still
are
racing.
empty, yeah. There were a couple times I went racing before I started pro comp racing with Gene Rickard. I had gone to many races with Mark Niver, and I'd bought Mark's car, and that's the car that Gene and I had. And but we had gone all the way to Fremont, I think, unloaded the car, broke it on the first qualifying run, we put a diaper on it, rolled it up into the trailer, and Mark and I come home and never said a word. I mean, never even went to the motel. And we did the same thing, and the two of us took his car over to Orange County for a test, and he broke it on the first burnout, and it stopped right after he's come up on the power. And he asked me, he says, what happened? I said, well, the rods are sticking out of it, let's go home. And we just put a diaper on the car and went right back to Phoenix.
So is that some of the stories when that happened, and then you end up having dinner just before they closed at the Roach?
Oh yeah, we always did. We always had dinner at the Roach before we left, and we always got the Indio, and Mark ran to the bathroom. So
They'll get this or make it to the
yeah, that was it.
So the Cucaracha, famed Mexican food restaurant, a lot of racers both in town and from out of town would eat there, and I think the number 10 was what most people remember the
Number
most.
10 with butter on the tortilla, and I just made mention of that to Susie Shoemate. She said those were such great times that I was kind of shocked that one day Trip Shoemate called me up, and I'm nobody, and that's Trip Shoemate, and I got real close to Trip and Susie and Heather, and then the young son come along, and yeah, I was devastated when I heard that Trip had gotten killed on the freeway.
It was a pretty sad day for
Yeah.
Arizona racing. Definitely. I remember him. You drove Joe McKee's car a little bit. I remember before Trip drove for Chadwick or drove for Dick Harrell, excuse me, and other things. He did make a couple passes in Joe's car as well, kind of the driver de jour. When Joe went through. But I remember he had driven Chuck's Corvette so long that Trip Shoemate could, let's just talk a few moments, but everybody has a memory of him. He could drive anything.
He did drive a lot of things, yeah, and that's pretty much all he had on his mind. Susie tells an interesting story. I think they were at Phoenix Dragway, Mel Larson's, and he backed over Susie's ankle and broke it, and said, get away from the car, I got to get up here and get the round. And she was there with a broken ankle. Interesting.
Die Hard.
Die Hard, yeah.
Mike, you remember anything about Trip that you?
Yeah, when he was driving Loper's car, he said it went and spit oil all over him every pass.
It was, he would drive over some parts, but he was
He never lived.
No, he wouldn't. He was an amazing guy.
But he really liked driving those cars.
What do you all miss about drag racing? You're still racing, Mike, or you're racing, but it's a different age and day. What do you miss about the golden days of drag racing?
There was a time I thought I would always have a race car. It was so much fun back there. It was easy. Everybody got along. There wasn't that many rules that just inhibited you from going fast. Everything was still safe, but everybody was so good. I mean, it didn't matter if you'd just gotten beat. You were still friends with the guy, and the guys that come from California or wherever, you were just part of the family. And there wasn't that much animosity, and there certainly wasn't any bad feeling. So you got beat, or you beat him, and you were still friends. So
I remember in the earlier days of drag racing, you'd go out there and one guy would have an Oldsmobile motor in his dragster, and the next guy would have a Cadillac motor in his dragster, and Ford motors and Chevy motors, and there was a lot of innovation. And you couldn't go down to speed shop and buy much. You had to, like, you wanted an intake multi-carburetor intake manifold. You bought a Crowler manifold and built it yourself.
yeah.
The early days of drag racing. So when their parts weren't readily available, you probably all developed relationships with different people at different manufacturers, and they helped you get through it. And
It was a lot of fun when you could take something and build it up, make it a winner, especially, and And you did. Not you bought it, you did.
After parts and stuff became more prevalent, and of course, most of the stuff we would buy from California, we always said that they have the California shelves, and then they have that back shelf that's marked Arizona racers, and that's what we got.
The
And,
Blems?
yeah, they were probably blems or hand-me-downs or pre-tested and didn't like or something. So that was, I remember that being kind of a standing joke. So,
Did you get up when you raced somebody from California?
yeah, yeah, but you know, I remember getting up no matter who it was. There were some people that, like the Carter brothers and Dodd, that would put me on the trailer so much that I really got up for them. But you know, I ended up, if you can't beat him, join him, and so I learned a lot from him, and we were close until the day he passed away, Ray. So, and I still talk to all the kids. So.
Back when you took your days of racing, you know, Art, you had, Scottsdale Automotive, you definitely did some performance parts there, but there were a lot of speed shops back in the day, and we talked about definitely Gooseiks and Lopers, and Ed Smith was another source, and you remember the rivalries between the speed shops. If you had a speed shop on your car and you're racing.
Oh yeah, I got him one time because I had Gooseick on one side and Loper on the other. I just had to make sure neither one of them were on that wrong side of the car.
Just to make sure the car went through together at the same time, right?
Yep, that's right.
I remember one speed shop owner, he used to sneak around at 2 o'clock in the morning and look in windows of the other speed shops.
So there is a statute of limitation on that story. So, but yes, I remember that too. The great people that have been around that we talk about. Some people. Al Cerny definitely was one of the early pioneers, and Ed Smith definitely still at it, swinging away. Chuck. There's a lot of great racers. John Loper, Everett Gooseick, the Gooseick brothers. A lot of great memories, and you're part of it. And the friendships you developed along the way, the people the memories of people just jumping into helping one another. That's a great feeling, and I really still think that it's still there today. If you go out and look there, you Mike, when you were racing the fuel altered circuit with IHRA, you still saw it. People would help you out, and Art, that when
I remember buying my first helmet from Everett Gooseick. And I went in there to buy a helmet, and they had helmets from $19 to $29 to $39 to $49. And I picked the $19 one, and then Everett said, "How much is your head worth?" Then I bought the high dollar one.
I saw Everett do that many times. You got $10, the old Simpson, $10 head, wear a $10 helmet. But I think that Everett was very good about. He was able to sell people safety equipment. It's something you wear but never want to use. Wonderful stories, guys. Thank you so much for being here today. Great part, Arizona Drag Racing Legends. Thank you for your time. And once again, Art Nolte, Rich Carter, Ken Rhoads, and Mike Hilsabeck. Thank you, guys.